Okay, hi everyone, this is Dr. Loyola and I am just going to make a short video here to walk you all through your final assignment for this class, the collaborative video essay. So hopefully by now you've all received my email yesterday and you've seen the assignment sheet up on Moodle. But this video is just to kind of make sure that I've explained what's going on and that we're a little bit more on the same page than just the assignment sheet alone. As always, you can email me or come see me to talk about more about this assignment. I'm happy to clarify all kinds of things further. But anyways, here we go. So first I'll just talk a little bit about the assignment. Why am I having you do this? So as it says on the assignment sheet, there are 3 core objectives to this assignment. First, the main one is to have you create a critical and creative video essay that explores some aspect of Black Mirror as it concerns real life. So we've spent the last 3 weeks looking at various episodes of Black Mirror at a fairly quick pace and talking a little bit about how these things relate to real life. You've put together annotated bibliography pieces that show where a lot of the technology relates and where some of the cultural concerns relate. So now you're going to do something like a deep dive into one episode as it concerns real life and real life concerns with digital technology and culture. Another objective, of course, is to work with a peer. I realize most of you will be working virtually as you're not in the same place, and that's fine. This is purposefully a collaborative assignment so that you have some time both to kind of critically think and put together this essay, and so that some of the production requirements are not entirely on you. And then finally, this is to demonstrate that you can work creatively and critically with videographic forms and film editing software. So one of the things you've been doing in addition to the annotated bibliography, where you've been starting this research process, is making short videos talking about formal aspects of these episodes. So this is now an opportunity where you can kind of put all that practice work to the test and demonstrate that you can demonstrate that you know how film is put together, how visual and audio content work with one another to tell a story. In this case, that story is going to be the essay topic that you choose. Okay, so the basic assignment here is to put together a longer critical research-based video essay. This will be between like 5 and 7 minutes, which is about 6 to 10 written pages. So this is a longer critical research-based video essay exploring, as I said, a single episode of Black Mirror and doing a deep dive into the concerns that episode shows about technology as it relates to culture. These video essays should all be critical, they should be reflective in their content, they should be research-based, and as I just mentioned, they should demonstrate your ability to work with audiovisual forms. So that's the very basic assignment. This is an episode of Black Mirror, research and look at how it relates to real life, and then create a video essay about it. That's kind of the bare bones. But we'll dig into this a little bit deeper. The way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to walk you through a process that you might follow to approach this if you're, just feeling kind of overwhelmed, a little bit lost with what I want you to do. And I'm going to imagine this as if we were writing one of these or creating one of these on Hang the DJ. So our first episode that we watched way back when. Okay, so the first thing that I would strongly recommend is, after you've chosen your episode, is to determine the major technological and cultural concerns that the episode displays. So a lot of these are incredibly complex. They look at lots of different technologies, lots of different cultural questions, and then they all kind of tell some story, usually of a bad connection between technology and culture. We have a few, San Junipero and Hang the DJ especially, that are a little bit more positive, but nevertheless they all kind of deal effectively with the complex relationships between digital technology and contemporary culture. So the first thing you want to do is identify what the episode's actually about in these 2 arenas. So in Hang the DJ, we've got one column over here for technology and one column over here on culture. So technology, of course, we've got the system, which has to do with personal data collection. It has to do with algorithms, which is just a fancy way of saying digital ordering of our lives or machinic processes that make certain steps to display certain results, how searching works. It's concerned with simulation, right? Of course, the big twist at the end is that the main characters in their entire dating lives, there's just a simulation being run. And then We didn't really discuss this, and I don't think anybody picked up on this for their annotated bib, but it also concerns virtual assistants, right? We see how closely the main characters are related to this coach character, how much their mobile devices are always on hand. So you could certainly craft an essay looking at this particular piece of technology, right? And I'm sure there's probably more technological concerns that we could list here. These are just kind of the first 5 that come to mind as like maybe the biggest and most obvious concerns. Then culturally, most of our concerns here have to do with relationships. We've got dating as this kind of multi-person fling-based thing that's maybe less serious than we tend to think of relationships now. The episode presents relationships as a monogamous exploration where, as we see, the main characters have 9 months to be with one person or 1 year to be with one person. We could expand this out to questions of socializing. As we notice at the kind of wedding-esque scene, everyone seems to have friends and socialize based solely on their romantic partners and the system. And then we could even extrapolate this further to just think about forming connections with other people as kind of a broader cultural concern. So even though this is about dating and it's mostly about finding the one, certainly we could expand relationships from just something that's romantic to friends, whatever kind of relationships you want to think about, which is forming connections with other people. So these are, again, just a few of the cultural themes that Hang the DJ seems to concern itself with. And you could make a chart like this for any of the episodes. They all kind of have clear technologies that they explore and then clear cultural issues that they explore. If we wanted to, right, we could add things like monogamy, we could add things like queerness and sexuality, we could add gender dynamics, right? We could add a number of different cultural themes to this list. These are, again, just kind of the most immediate 4 that are perhaps the easiest to talk about and most explicit in the episode. So once you've got your list of themes, you want to kind of explore or formulate a research question or a problem space. And these are really the same thing, but sometimes problem space is a way that you can think about this as a broader exploration. So it's not just forming a specific question like how does the system relate to relationships or something like that, but instead it could be a broader problem space like digital technology and dating, right? That's not a research question, but it's like a big kind of topical space that you could explore as the problem. So once you've got your list of technology and cultural issues in the episode, you'll formulate your question or problem space. So here's again just a quick kind of list of questions that we might ask about Hang the DJ based on the ways that culture and technology are presented in the episode. So we could ask something like, how do things like personal data collection, simulations, and algorithms affect our cultural practices of dating or forming social relationships, right? And that's a great research question. We could kind of go from there and do a lot of research, and then we could put together some kind of essay about it. Right? We could, number 2, what assumptions do we make about machines and people when we use things like data, simulations, and algorithms to facilitate our dating or our relationships? This is a slightly different question, right? This is kind of getting more at what are we saying about machines and about technology, where the first question is maybe asking a little more about culture. Either one works. Number 3, we could bring it right down to the present instead of exploring the future. And we could say, how are we already using things like personal data collection, simulations, and algorithms to facilitate our social relationships today? This might be the question that leads you to explore things like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, social networks, and how they relate not just in terms of dating, but in terms of other relationships. Question 4, how does the episode explore these issues? What is the tone that it takes? What kinds of formal elements help create the tone or affect our understanding of the story? How does it tell the story of technology and culture? So I mentioned at the beginning of this video that this is one of the few episodes of Black Mirror that has like a positive story. So this might be the place where you explore that. Like, why is this the episode that is positive about this? If you think it's positive, you could certainly argue that's not positive. And then question 5, this is again if you kind of wanted to take the road less traveled a bit, the less explicit exploration of the episode, and say, and focus something on virtual assistants. So you could ask, how do we use virtual assistants today? What are the assumptions we make about virtual assistants? How much power do we give to virtual assistants? Any of these questions. And this would be kind of the essay that you might explore Coach as Coach relates to Siri or Cortana or Erica or any other virtual voice assistants that we see today. So like from there, I just listed off a bunch of women's names. So you might say, why are they always women? Right? That's a fair question. Okay, so once you've got your problem space or your research question, obviously then you'll do your research. I'm not going to walk you through that, but I do have just a few things to keep in mind. First, you may use 2 sources from the annotated bib. So that's the reason that I was having you all make those collaborative documents and format them a certain way so that now you can go back and it's a useful resource for you to start your research. So if you want to use the 2 that you and your partner already put together, that's great. If you think there's something from your research space or your problem area that someone else in the class linked and you think that's more interesting, then by all means use that. So you can take 2 from the annotated bib. But you must have at least 5 total. So you need to find 3 more. And these need to be beyond the episode. So I do expect you to work with the episode in some capacity, but you need 5 more sources beyond that, because again, this is research-based. Do make sure that you pull from verifiable sources. No conspiracy theory links, no Wikipedia pages, right? But be verifiable in what you do. Be careful there. You can use things like Google, you can use the library, all kinds of resources available to you. And then just like a note, I noticed in the annotated bibliographies, generally you posted things that were in print and in text-based. I think there's a handful of videos, but generally there's a lot of print-based articles, and that's fantastic. Print is great, but don't shy away from looking for other media, right? Just because something's a video doesn't mean it's not a verifiable source, or just because something's on a podcast or a radio show or a speech or something doesn't mean it's not verifiable. And since you're going to be working outside of print for the essay, you may find that finding video clips or podcasts, you can integrate those more with a little bit more ease into that video essay in the end, right? Because you're not just quoting as you would in a print essay, you need to handle the visual and the audio content. And well, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but this is why I would really encourage you to think of sources in media besides print. And then of course, pay attention to things like publication date, venue, author information, and bias. So publication date, that's of course important because of the rate at which technology changes. Venue is always important for assessing both the bias and the verifiability of it. And then author information, this is something I've noticed that isn't necessarily like an obvious thing to do for research. And that is, don't just look at who's written something, but like find out who that person is. And use that to assess your source and to assess how verifiable it is, how valuable it is, can you trust it, and so on. All right, then you will, of course, put the essay together once you've done the research task. Once you've got your problem space, your question, you'll put your essay together. If this were not a new media class, this would say write the essay, but here you'll notice it's put the essay together because, of course, this is a video essay. So it's going to include writing and filming. Okay, so a few things about how video essays are like written essays and how they are unlike written essays. Okay, so just like a written essay, your video essay should have a clear and explicit organization. There should be a clear introduction where you introduce what you're going to be talking about, you introduce the episode, you introduce the problem space, and so on. There should be a clear body where you explore and give us the information that your essay is about. And there should be a clear conclusion where you signal, this is over now, you can stop watching. Right, and the conclusion and the introduction will be very similar to, and the body for that matter, will be very similar to the written essay, even though of course it'll be in video form. Where the intro and conclusion might especially shift though, is that you may find that you like having a title slide that says, the beginning of the video, maybe the title, your name, the class. And maybe a concluding title that says like, thanks for watching, or it's done now, or, something like that. Because you need to visually signal that things are starting and that things have ended, which is not necessarily something that you think about in a written essay. You'll also have clear transitions between ideas. So just like a written essay, you need to transition between your paragraphs. Same thing will happen here. You need to transition between your ideas, though those ideas will not be in paragraphs, of course. You need to integrate your sources. So just like in a written essay, you might say things like, Dr. So-and-so, a professor of blah, blah, blah at this university, claims this, right? And then you provide the quote. You'll want to do the same kinds of things in your narration in the video essay. You should have direct references to your primary sources. So in this case, that's your episodes. Those are the clips that you should include. You will need to include a process of editing, drafting, and planning. So the video essay should not be something that you just sit down and do a live off-the-cuff recording of. Certainly on some level you'll have to do that, but you should also plan to edit, cut things together. You should have a long drafting session to put everything together, and all that kind of stuff. So this is just like in a normal essay, right? Editing, drafting, and planning is important. And then, of course, you should have appropriate background information and context. So this is something that I spoke a little bit about discussing the introduction. But, what is Black Mirror? What is this episode? Give us a brief summary of the episode. Let us know who you are, why you're making this essay, what your essay is going to be about, right? All this kind of stuff should be in a video essay, just like it should be in a written essay. Of course, though, this is different. So there are some things we need to think about because of these media differences. So first of all, unlike a written essay, you don't usually have to think about the visual content of your paper, right? Of course, paper is visual. We have things like indents into paragraphs, justifying on the left, title sizes, subtitles. We have things like that that are visual, but generally we don't think about them as visual design. In a video essay, you will have to pay much more attention to what is actually on screen. So menu stuff, kind of debris is what you can think of that as. That stuff should be cut out. That should not be there. You want to make sure that your visual content actually relates to the sound. So if you're talking about something from a clip, that should be playing on screen as you're talking about it. You'll also need to think a little bit about words and phrases that can be heard and listened to and not read. So one thing that I think you all are probably familiar with, whether you've thought about it or not, is the way that a good video or a good in-person conversation or a good presentation uses words that are a little bit more everyday. They may seem a little bit more informal than what you would write and turn into for a formal English essay, right? So think about the fact that your audience is not reading this, they're just listening. So that's going to change your syntax, that's going to change your word choice, right? There's all kinds of things that are easier to hear and listen to than that are easier to read. So even though you may want to write out a script, and I would certainly encourage this, write the script as if you were speaking. Okay, so just be careful of that. And you might even try reading it to a friend, reading it to your partner, reading it to a parent, whoever, but reading it to someone so that they can say, oh no, this is way too complex, or yep, you've got it exactly right. This was very easy to listen to. And then the final thing is this difference between showing versus telling. So when you write an essay, we often still talk about this in written form, but it's very hard to really show something in writing that is not already in writing. So if you were writing about a film, for instance, you can't show the clip in the way that you can in a video essay. You have to tell about the clip. So when you're working in a video essay, there tends to be a lot more focus on showing what you're talking about rather than just telling. And in the resources book, which again, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but in the resources book, I've collected a few example video essays that do an excellent job of showing what's going on rather than simply telling about it. But just keep in mind that you want to show the audience what you're talking about. You want to show what happens in the episode. You want to show how the camera works. You want to show the angles. You want to show the lighting, whatever the case may be, rather than just tell them about it, because you can, right? You're working in a video. You're working in a visual format. All right, so that's enough about kind of what the assignment is. Let's transition now to talking a little bit about how it's going to be graded. Okay, so this is all up on Moodle, and you will have a more detailed grade sheet as usual, but you'll be graded on these 4 things. So obviously the content is very important. 100 out of your 250 points is on content. Content is everything from did you actually follow the prompt? Does your essay look at a single episode of Black Mirror and talk about how it thinks about technology and culture together? Have you done this effectively? Do you show good research? Do you integrate sources? Have you used clips? Right? This is content. So like, what did you put together? Number 2 is production. So this is when video design and your ability to manipulate videographic information comes into play. So production is going to be everything from effective visual and audio matching together. It's going to be effective integration of clips, effective integration of sources, effective transitions, use of titles, right? It's going to be all the stuff that says you have paid attention to what it means to design a video essay rather than simply write a print essay. Rhetorical awareness is related to this, but rhetorical awareness says, have you understood your audience and what your audience is going to need to follow your argument? So this has to do with word choice. This has to do with the effect of your narration. This has to do with how formal or informal this seems. And then finally, you'll be graded on collaboration. This is 10% of the final grade, 25 points. I want to see that you've actually shared the work with one another, that no one person did everything, that you kind of evenly distributed things, and that both parties feel that there's been an effective and equitable collaboration in this assignment. Okay, so here is our class Moodle page. Down here in Unit 4, Collaborative Video Essay, most of your resources will be found down here. A lot of this you'll find that I'm kind of duplicating some content just to try and make the course website as navigable as possible for you. So first, you've got the basic prompt and basic assessment. Right, here's the assessment criteria I just went over with you. Here's the basic assignment prompt I just went over. And then down here is the assignment sheet here. The assessment guide will be up here later this afternoon. And this is also where you'll submit the video essay. You can also find your teams here. So if you're not sure yet who you're working with, here is where you can find that information. And as you've noticed here, you can contact this team member through Moodle's mail feature. So I will assume that your Moodle is set up like mine. But for mine, there is this nice handy quick mail block right up here at the top. And somewhere in Moodle you can find this. So if I go into compose new email, yours will perhaps look a little bit different, but you should have like a list of who you can email and then select your recipient. So if I wanted to email Amber, for instance, I select her name, add, and now we see she's over here in recipients. Here I type my message, subject, whatever, send the email, and that will only go to Amber because she's the only one over here. Okay, it's a little bit clunky, not the best UI, but it works. Okay, so if you don't know how to contact your partner, this is how you can do that from the Moodle mail feature. Okay, so related to contacting your partner, in the resources block, so the one that contains your video essay resources, annotated bib, and collaboration resources, I've created a new book on collaboration resources for you. Okay, so this is just 2 short chapters. So the first one is just some tips and advice about effective collaboration. These are based in experience and research and teaching collaboration, which I've been doing for quite a while. So some of these are common sense, some of them aren't though. So give these a read. There's just 5 basic tips, but you know, spend some time kind of looking at this, especially if you're one who has no fond memories of group projects. You're not alone in that, certainly, but you know, collaboration is an important thing that you're going to have to learn how to do. So this is an example here. So some basic tips. In the second chapter are some platforms and apps that you might find that are helpful. So we've got things like Slack, which is a group messaging kind of workflow monitoring project application, which is fantastic. I can't say enough good things about Slack. You can get it here, but it's really just a messaging platform. GroupMe and WhatsApp are both text messaging platforms. Google Hangouts and Skype are ways to do video chat that are non-proprietary like FaceTime is. Also, I'd recommend using Google Hangouts or Skype because you can share your screen. So that means that you can turn around and you can actually just say like, here's what I'm looking at. What do you think? So if you want to collaborate on, for instance, putting a video together, this would be a great way to do it. To my knowledge, FaceTime doesn't have screen sharing, so that's why I would point you to either one of these. Trello and Asana are both workflow applications, so these can just help you kind of get a handle on everything that needs to be done to put this assignment together, and then handling who's doing what, so you can remember who's got what jobs, who's done what, who's been assigned what. These both assume bigger teams than 2, but you still might find them helpful for managing with two people who are not in the same place and who may be working asynchronously, which means you're working at two different times. And then finally, Google Drive and Google Productivity Suite. This is just Google Docs, Google Sheets, and so on. If you haven't used these before, the really cool thing about them is that multiple people can work on a single document at a time, and it handles versioning really well. So what that means is that if you go in and edit something, it will save that edit, but you can revert back to the old form without needing to go to without needing to have saved the previous document before you edited it. So typically when you work in something like Microsoft Word, you might have like, I don't know, essay version 1, essay version 2, essay version 3, or whatever. Google will handle that for you. So if you add something and then you decide, oh, you know, I actually really don't like that, you can easily go back to the previous version. While at the same time, two different people can write on it, or 3 or 4 or 5 can write on the same document at one time. So that's really kind of its main appeal, is the versioning, and that you can have synchronous sharing across two different platforms. Okay, so in addition to the collaboration resources, down in the Unit 4 block, I've also put together a book of exemplary video essays and why they are exemplary. Okay, so again, I don't expect that you've made a video essay before, besides the 8 kind of small practice ones you've done so far for this class. So this is to help you kind of think about and put together a video essay and as it relates to or doesn't relate to a written essay. So all the videos in here, this is kind of just the same 6 or 7 repeated in different forms for what they do really well. But all of them do these things really well. They all have great organization of content. They all have great use of the visual medium. They all have great use of sound. They all display really effective cutting and editing, great transitions, and they all show versus tell incredibly well. But over here in the chapters, I've divided them up. So just a few that do particularly good transitions. So if you just want to see like how do these things handle transitions, here's 3 that transition between ideas really well. Here's 3 that are especially good at showing versus telling, 3 that are especially great at integrating sources and other clips, 3 that do a great job thinking about rhetorical awareness, and here's some that do a great job of incorporating titles. And I'll be adding to this, but these are just for you and for your reference. So what I expect you to do with these is I've been linking them to you as examples that should teach you things, right? So this one you may remember from the suspense formal analysis video. Now I want you to watch it for how it's done, right? So kind of a meta-analysis of what happens. So as you watch these, you know, think about how this one uses titles and notice that, and then feel free to kind of mimic that or take that and model it in your own work, right? That's what these videos now are for. That's why these resources are here for you. Okay, and finally, besides all those resources on Moodle, I am also here. I know we haven't met. I haven't met most of you because we're, you know, asynchronous and distance learning, but I really am here to help you. And by here, I mean both physically and virtually. So you can reach me as always. I have office hours Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11:30 to 1 in Edwards 216. You can email me. Here's my coastal email, or through Moodle as I just showed you. And I'm happy to do Skype or Google Hangout meetings outside of these times. It's harder for me to meet outside of standard business hours, but I can make it work if that's the only time that works for you. So please email me to set up a time if you'd like to talk, you know, your team and me. We can absolutely talk through anything related to this essay. I'm happy to look at drafts. I'm happy to look at example clips. We can think through ideas, right? I can help you verify sources. Truly anything related to this assignment, I'm here to help you with and happy to help you with. Okay, so this is how you can find me. And that is all. Good luck with this. I really think you guys can do it. I know it's a big assignment, but you all can do it, and I look forward to seeing your work.